I actually made this video, I shot this video the other day, and I was about to post it, but something told me not to. I don't know what it was. Some intuition was like, don't post that just yet. And after what happened in the news today, with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I realized that what I said when I originally recorded this video, it actually wouldn't have tracked. It wouldn't have made sense. And I'll explain why in a second. I was gonna make a video about a film I saw the other day. It's called Afternoons of Solitude, directed by a man from Catalonia named Albert. Sorry, I hadn't seen any of his films before. I didn't even know much about the film. It was explained to me that it was an art documentary, and a friend had tickets, and I was invited along. And I will say from the start, it was at the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London, and if you haven't been there before, it's the kind of place where you would expect, a lot of young, progressive, London creative, if you looked around the audience and what everyone was wearing and the vibe, you'd kind of tell what everyone's kind of, what they vote kind of thing, right? And that's going to be more important as we get into this story. And the film, Afternoons of Solitude, is a very Spanish film. It's about a bullfighter. And as I said, it's an art documentary. It doesn't really have much of a plot, although it kind of develops one we'll get to in a second. But it's effectively just shots of this matador, this young matador. Apparently he's like the best in the business at the moment. Top-ranked matador, like the Leighton Hewitt of matadors. It's just close-ups, basically like just his top of his body and face, and he's kind of really focused the whole time. And he's just fighting a series of bulls. It's just like follows his whole season. And from the outset, I should explain, I have a demonstrated history of being anti-bullfighting. I'm not quite a vegetarian myself, but I can put my hand on my heart and say I don't condone bullfighting. Even after seeing this movie, I don't condone bullfighting. I don't think, as a principle in my life, one of my things that I believe is I don't think that innocent life forms should be killed needlessly for human entertainment. I don't think their blood should be spilt just for, a spectacle. And I have a demonstrated history of this. I was actually in Sevilla, Spain last year. I was there with a group of people, and we stood outside the ring where the bullfighting was happening. We looked at each other and said, we want to be part of the culture. We want to understand what goes on in Spain. But we all decided, no, we don't want to go in there. It's too expensive. No, we didn't want to, that was icky. We didn't want to see that. And I'll be honest, going into this movie, I was almost a little bit like, do I really want to watch a bull bleed out for an hour and a half? And that's pretty much what the whole thing is. It's just bullfighting. And I'll talk you through sort of my experience of watching this film, because it was a trip. And I say this is someone that watches a lot of movies. It's very, when you watch a lot of movies, you got a high threshold. Someone who drinks a lot of beers. You get a high tolerance. I don't get this transformed by cinema this much this often. It's a kind of a once or twice a year kind of thing, maybe a little bit more. But this was, I can't remember having such a deep sense of self-reflection after seeing a film or during seeing a movie as much as this one in quite a while. Anyway, you're watching this movie and you're seeing this guy do the bullfighting. And by the way, I didn't know this about bullfighting, but they stab and jab the bull quite a bit at the start. So it's a bit lethargic. It's kind of a bit tired, and it's not really making its way around the ring very quickly. Because I think if it was full speed or whatever, it would actually put up a good fight, and the matador would kind of die every time. So this thing is kind of bleeding out from the start, basically. And the guy's kind of doing the thing with the red, and what you see in the cartoons. And I gotta be honest with you, I was watching, I was like, this guy's a coward. I was like, this does not look that hard. The bull is pretty slow because it's half dead. Imagine being pricked by a couple of thumbtacks and try and go out and play a game of footy. Something the bull is very badly injured. And the guy's like, hey, look at me. And you're like, this guy's a coward. He's a loser. And also, you've seen what they wear. This guy loves himself. He's a real classic. And I will say it, he's he looks like a very sort of masculine, white, young man, very sort of chauvinistic, traditionalist type dude doing this very kind of culturally conservative act. This guy has all the power, right? There's no part of you that thinks this guy is an underdog, that he's downtrodden, that he is in any way below the bull in any kind of power dynamic that might be at play here. And the bull's an innocent animal. Insofar as it is an animal, it's innocent. But then you've also got the spears and stuff there. You feel so sorry for this poor thing, and it doesn't know any better. It's trying to charge this guy. And so at this point of the movie, not only was I a little bit bored, but probably more so than I just hated this guy. I was like, what a so-and-so. Like, who is this guy? He thinks he's such a cool dude. What a loser. It doesn't even look that hard. In fact, I reckon I could do it. He's not running around that quick. He's not that agile, whatever. And then the bull swerves around and it catches him and he gets thrown up and down and pummeled into the ground. And I tell you, from the bottom of my heart, this is the moment. The biggest gasp, like this huge reaction, not just from me, but like this whole audience, this is like probably plenty of vegans in this room. Jesus, like viscerally, like, whoa, Jesus. And suddenly, despite the fact that this guy has been a little bit of like a showboat, arrogant, audacious type dude, we all have this moment. We were like, oh my God, I care. Like, I really care about this guy all of a sudden. And as I was saying before, a plot begins to emerge where the more time you spend with this guy and you look into his eyes and you see his face and you remember the same expression from 5 minutes earlier and you see how he's doing the same sort of, he's using the same sort of words he used before and you're seeing a kind of a very slight and subtle development, but you are seeing a development of who he is and how much guts he has. And also, because you now know what the stakes are, you are freaking out the whole time, hoping this doesn't happen again, because it was a close call before, and then it does happen again. He gets pinned up against the fence, and again, oh geez, I don't want to. And so this amazing kind of moment of self-reflection happens, where you realize that despite any kind of like on paper, principle, ideological discrepancies you might have with this guy and his actions and his beliefs and everything, you might be the biggest like pro-PETA, like animal rights person. There's this human side of you, this aspect of your humanity, or your sense of humanity, that screams out, and it screams out so much louder. It what you might say, it transcends ideology, any kind of principles you might be able to write down on a piece of paper, any little kind of norms or values that you have about yourself, or animal rights, or anything, or chauvinism, or traditionalism, or conservatism, or anything like that. It doesn't matter if you're a capitalist, communist, liberal, conservative, progressive, whatever those isms are, they go right out the door when it's a matter of life and death. Even if that person is killing an innocent animal, he's got blood all over his shirt from being so much of a savage, you can't help but feel this sense of humanity when his life is threatened. And he doesn't even, like, it's not like, when I say his life is threatened, like he could potentially die, but I don't want to give away any spoilers or anything like that. But, you have this moment where you're like, it doesn't matter how many kind of little ideas we have about what's right and wrong, there's something primordial, something primal in us that we can't overcome when push comes to shove. When we see another fellow Homo sapien undergo such a sort of scary situation, a threat to their life. And when I was making this video the other day, this is the point where I said, and the sort of, the kind of insight that I got from this experience was that, we really do care about each other. We do, like, despite the fact that we have our little ideological squabbles, and we think that this person's immoral or this person's whatever, when push comes to shove, when people's lives are on the line, all that stuff kind of goes out the window. We forget it's even there, and we just care about that person. And then this thing happens today with Charlie Kirk, and I saw the headlines, and then I went through all like the news headlines, went through all the comments and everything, and I gotta say I was quite shocked by sort of how dismissive and casual and sort of irreverent, and I feel like people were sort of acting like a human being didn't die. And I know that there was another shooting today, and I know that there's been political assassinations in the recent past, and I get why people engage in things like whataboutism, for certain reasons. But at the end of the day, a human being did die. And I was, unpleasantly surprised that so many people probably didn't see that as a kind of a grave historic fact. And what I've been thinking about all day is, despite all that, despite all the explanations one might have for why people don't really care that much, and maybe you don't really care that much, I still had that experience at the cinema the other day. I still was in a room full of people who are generally anti-animal cruelty, and we saw a man committing a cruel act on an innocent animal. We still felt sorry for him. And when push came to shove, we still were worried about his life. And it was, as I said, it was still an example of a time where ideology went out the window for the sake of this guy's life. And I was trying to distinguish the difference, and I think I realized what it is. And it's a really good reminder, and here's the big films for today sort of point, is it's a reminder of why good directing is really important, but more so than that, why good filmmaking and good creative work is not only so important, but crucial to us sustaining ourselves as a humane human race. And why I say all this is when you're watching Afternoons of Solitude, as I said before, it's close-ups, right? You're looking at a man's face for an hour and a half. And in that time, you're getting to know him. And when the bull hits him, you see his expression change, and you see a man undergo a very serious shift in his demeanor, and you really feel the gravity of it. And people talk about, as you know, time passes, different mediums of media, you know, taking over others, and you know, we don't write on tablets anymore, and you know, cinema is dead and all this sort of stuff. Cinema can't die, or at least mediums that can depict all three dimensions of a human being cannot die. Social media is not a good medium for depicting humanity. When people read about a man being killed and they see a person like this on like a rectangle explaining that Charlie Kirk is dead, that's different to a director showing you a man's face when the life is pulled out of it. And when I had this thought, I found a video, because I hadn't seen it yet, of Charlie Kirk, like the moment when the life leaves his face, when the shooter gets him. And it was a very familiar feeling. It was the same feeling I had when I saw Afternoons of Solitude. It's the moment of, oh my God, that's a fellow Homo sapien losing that special thing inside them that they lost. And I'm not somebody that really actually knows that much about Charlie. I knew who he was, and I didn't follow him on any social media or anything like that. I kind of knew what he was about, but he's not really one of my guys, like politically. But I had that feeling, and I went in the comments, and a lot of people said things like, you can go check it out. A lot of people said things like, okay, I don't like Charlie Kirk, but this is upsetting. This is freaking me out. Watching this makes me sad. This is a horrible thing to look at. And I think that is the lesson here. It's not about the fact that we automatically care about each other when our lives are on the line, but when you are faced with the moment, when you see those 21 grams, you know, when you see the life come out of a person's face, something happens in you. And I think there are broader political implications of this, and I think we can map this onto other things happening in the world right now, whether it's what's happening in Gaza, or what's happening in Ukraine, or the Congo, or Syria, or Yemen, or in various parts of Southeast Asia at the moment, or in every other part of the world where there is violence being enacted. If you are someone that has an ideological position in any one of those conflicts, I think it would be a really smart idea to actually track down, I know this sounds kind of psychotic, but I think it's the opposite of psychopathy at this point, to be honest with you. I think something that the internet can provide us is if you are really ideological about this stuff, go and track down someone from that opposite ideology having the life stripped from them. Watch that and ask yourself a question, which is there something that is of more worth, of greater value than the thing I just saw being taken from that person? And I think if the answer to that question is yes, I can't tell you whether that's right or wrong. I can't tell you whether you're immoral or moral for thinking that. But what I would say is, going off my reaction in that cinema the other day, and everybody else is sitting there, you know, watching someone's life be threatened, even though we completely disagreed with everything they were doing and it was completely their fault and blah, blah, blah. I would take a guess that if you see like a sacred life be stripped out of a person's body, even if you disagree with everything that they believe, and you think that there is something more valuable in this world, like a flag or a piece of paper or a line in the sand somewhere on this earth, I think you're going to be you must be a very lonely person. You must be a very alienated person, because when we were sitting in that cinema, there was a commonality between all of us, which is we were concerned for this guy. And if you think there are things in the world that are more valuable than human life in any form, I think that's the thing we talk about when we're talking about humanity. That's the thing. It is the humanity of the person. That's the thing that we care about as an axiomatic value. That's the ends, the ultimate ends that That's the only ends that a means can justify. It reminds me a little bit of another really good film I think people should go away and watch is Andrew Dominic's The Assassination of Jesse James. I think that really gets into this sort of stuff and what it means to take a life out of somebody, even if that person isn't a hero, even if that person has done bad things, even if that person has taken life themselves. And I know there's a big elephant in the room in me saying this because, you know, there's been millions of people killed at the hands of other people, and I don't think that means that killing is a casual thing. I think it means that if a person, knowing how traumatic and horrific it is to witness another human being, I mean, imagine it in the flesh, not even through a screen, but to witness that in real life and to be the perpetrator, I mean, what kind of personal hell is that person in? What kind of hell on earth has that person been forced into? When I was in Vietnam, I shot a gun just to know what it feels like to deal with that as a sobering experience. And I remember the feeling. I didn't want to finish the round. I was like, the idea of a person standing in front of that and feeling that explosion that you feel in your hands. If someone is willing to do that to another human being and look them in the eyes and do it, the hell that person is in. And I extend that, my pity, to anyone that's had to do that. I extend that to this person who's not yet known, who pulled the trigger on Charlie Kirk. I mean, what kind of mental turmoil a person has to be in to do that. And, you know, I don't know how to finish this video except for the fact that I think this is a really scary time. I think not just for people in America, but as I said, all those countries, Yemen, Syria, Gaza, wherever. I think that if this is a trigger for anything good, it's a trigger for making good movies. And that's not a superficial take. I think that audiovisual media and anything that can remind people of the humanity in other people, anything that can take us away from these rectangles that only can give you a caricature, right? This can only give you a two-dimensional view of people. If you are understanding humanity through this thing right now, you're not understanding the true character of that person. There are no two-dimensional caricatures walking this earth. We are all three-dimensional beings, and good art, good cinema, good book will remind you of that. So if you are an artist or a filmmaker, please don't take this medium for granted. Please use it to tell life-affirming stories that remind people of the humanity in all of us. I don't think this is a strong belief I have as someone that has a film show based on this. I don't think we have the luxury anymore of making tiddlywinks with a film camera. You've got to be making stuff that's serious. And I'm not saying serious in tone all the time, but you've got to have the objective of humanizing people, of making people remember that every other one of these 7 billion people on this planet are three-dimensional Homo sapiens, that we all have the capacity, unless you're an actual capital P psychopath, which I don't really believe in personally. I don't think I've ever met one. I don't think they really exist. I think there's just been people that have had a bad go of it, to be honest. I wouldn't go as far as to say even moral duty, but if we are going to go on and we don't want this stuff to keep spiraling out of control, you have to use that film camera or that pen or that keyboard to remind people how important life is and how sacred all our experiences of human consciousness are, and to remind people that we have people to protect and that there is something worth fighting for. Because it works. Albert Serra, your movie worked. It changed how I think about matadors, or at least that guy. Andrew Dominic, these people, they know what they're doing. Go and watch good movies, be inspired, and keep it going.